If you say it out loud, it becomes real. And then there is no going back. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Memorial Hospital buzzed softly above the nearly empty women's restroom on the third floor, where Anna Carter stood gripping the edge of the sink like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her reflection in the mirror looked thinner than she remembered, her pale face framed by loose strands of brown hair that had escaped her messy ponytail. She was 7 months pregnant, exhausted beyond what sleep could fix, and carrying a silence inside her chest that had grown heavier with every passing week. The hospital had told her to wait for results, but waiting had become a familiar language in her life. Waiting for calls that never came. Waiting for apologies that never arrived. Waiting for someone to choose her just once without conditions. She pressed a trembling hand against her belly, feeling the faint movement of her baby, and whispered without realizing she was speaking aloud. I don't think anyone has ever loved me. Not really. Not in a way that stayed. The words barely left her lips, soft and broken, but they filled the small room like a confession she had been holding for years. Outside the restroom door, just beyond the thin barrier of painted wood and stainless steel hinges, Ethan Caldwell stood motionless. He had not meant to stop there. He had come to St. Mary's Memorial Hospital for a scheduled donor review meeting with the executive board, something routine, something that should have taken less than an hour. But he had paused when he heard her voice through the partially open door. Not loud, not dramatic, just human. Ethan was a man who controlled rooms without speaking. At 38, he was the chief executive officer of Caldwell Global Industries, a name that carried weight in every financial district from New York to San Francisco. People adjusted their tone when speaking to him. Meetings paused when he entered. But in that moment, standing in a hospital corridor that smelled faintly of antiseptic and paper coffee cups, he felt something unfamiliar. He did not move. He did not interrupt. He simply listened. Inside the restroom, Anna leaned forward slightly, resting her forehead against the cool mirror as if it could absorb the ache in her voice. I thought it would feel different by now, she continued, her tone barely above a whisper. I thought maybe someone would have stayed. But it's always just me. She let out a shaky breath, then laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. Ethan's hand tightened around the folder he was holding. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. But something about the way she said it made his chest tighten in a way he could not immediately explain. It was not pity. It was not curiosity. It was recognition of something broken and familiar. Footsteps echoed faintly down the hall as a nurse passed by, but Ethan remained still. Anna washed her hands slowly, as if grounding herself in the repetitive motion. Water ran over her fingers, and she stared down at it like it might wash away the weight of what she had just admitted. It's fine, she told herself quietly, though no one else was in the room. I've handled worse. But her voice betrayed her. It cracked at the end, thin and fragile. Ethan finally shifted his weight slightly, not stepping away, not stepping closer. Just present. He had spent years making decisions that affected thousands of employees, negotiating contracts worth millions, and building systems that ran without emotion. Yet here, behind a restroom door, a stranger's quiet honesty made everything else feel distant and irrelevant. Anna reached for a paper towel, dried her hands, and took a long breath. Just get through today, she whispered, more firmly this time, as if she was giving herself an order rather than encouragement. She checked her reflection once more, forcing her expression into something steadier, something that could survive the outside world. Then she opened the door. The hallway light hit her face as she stepped out, and for the first time she noticed him. Ethan Caldwell stood a few feet away, still, composed, his presence quietly overwhelming without effort. Their eyes met. A second passed. Then another. Anna hesitated, confused for a moment, wondering how much he had heard, wondering if he was even looking at her at all or past her. Ethan did not speak immediately. He simply observed her, not with judgment, but with an intensity that made her breath catch for reasons she could not explain. The hospital around them continued moving, nurses walking past, phones ringing softly, distant announcements echoing through the corridors. But between them, something had already shifted, though neither of them had given it a name yet. And in that silence, heavy with unspoken understanding, Ethan Caldwell realized he had just heard something he could not unhear. Ethan did not look away first. That was what unsettled Anna the most. Men usually did. They glanced, they judged, they moved on. But he just stood there in the hospital hallway as if her silence had weight, as if it mattered in a way she did not understand. Anna tightened her grip on the strap of her worn handbag, suddenly aware of how out of place she felt in this building of polished floors and quiet authority. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice cautious. "If I was speaking too loud in there, I did not mean for anyone to hear." Ethan's expression shifted slightly, not softening, not hardening, just changing in a way she could not read. "You don't need to apologize," he replied calmly. His voice was steady, controlled, almost distant but not unkind. Anna nodded once, uncomfortable under his attention. She took a small step to the side, ready to leave, ready to disappear into the rhythm of her difficult day, but Ethan spoke again. "Are you here alone?" The question stopped her. Not because it was invasive but because it was simple. Too simple. Anna hesitated. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly, a protective gesture she did not even notice she made anymore. "Yes," she said after a moment. "I always am." The words slipped out before she could soften them. They hung in the air between them like something heavier than intended. Ethan did not respond immediately. Instead, he looked down the corridor, then back at her, as if weighing something unseen. Anna shifted her weight, suddenly aware of the silence stretching too long. "It's fine," she added quickly, forcing a small, practiced smile. "I'm used to it." But the smile did not convince even her. Ethan finally spoke. "No one should be used to that." His tone was low, controlled, but there was something underneath it, something that made Anna's chest tighten for reasons she could not explain. She looked away first this time, uncomfortable with how direct his presence felt. "People get used to what they have to," she said quietly. "That's just how it works." Ethan studied her for a moment longer, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a simple black card holder. He did not offer anything yet. He simply held it as if deciding. "What is your name?" he asked. Anna blinked, surprised by the question. "Anna Carter." He nodded once as if storing it away. "Anna," he repeated like he was testing the sound of it. Then he glanced toward the end of the hallway where a nurse station buzzed with quiet activity. "Why are you at St. Mary's today?" Anna hesitated again. She did not like telling strangers her problems. She had learned that most people asked out of curiosity, not care. But something about him made lying feel unnecessary. "Prenatal checkup," she said softly. "I am 7 months along." Ethan's eyes shifted briefly toward her stomach. It was not intrusive. It was observant. Measured. "And the father?" he asked, not harshly, just direct. Anna let out a small breath that sounded almost like laughter, but without any joy in it. "Not involved," she said simply. "Has not been for a long time." Ethan nodded again, slower this time. He did not offer sympathy. He did not offer advice. That was what made it different. Instead he said, "You were in pain when I heard you earlier." Anna froze slightly. She had not expected him to say it so plainly. "I wasn't trying to be dramatic," she replied quickly. "It was just a moment." "I know," Ethan said. His voice softened slightly, but only just enough to notice. But moments like that usually come from something much longer. Anna did not know how to respond to that. Felt too accurate, too precise. Like he had seen more than he should have. A nurse called out her name from the far end of the corridor, breaking the tension. Anna turned her head instinctively. "That's me," she said, relieved by the interruption. She took a step backward, then paused. "I should go." Ethan stepped slightly aside to let her pass. For a moment she thought that would be the end of it. Just a strange interaction in a long, difficult day. But as she walked away, Ethan spoke one last time. "Anna." She turned back. He stood exactly where he had been, composed, still, but his gaze held steady. "If you ever need help," he said evenly, "you will not have to look for me." She stared at him for a second, unsure whether to take the words seriously or dismiss them like empty politeness. Then she nodded politely, the way people do when they do not know what else to do. "Thank you," she said, though she did not believe someone like him would ever be part of her life again. And then she walked toward the nurse station, disappearing into the rhythm of the hospital. Ethan remained in the hallway long after she was gone. The hospital corridor felt longer the further Ethan Caldwell walked, as if the building itself had shifted slightly after the encounter he could not shake from his mind. People moved around him with purpose, nurses carrying charts, doctors speaking in low voices, patients waiting in plastic chairs that lined the walls like silent witnesses. Yet Ethan's attention stayed fixed on one thing: the woman who had just walked away from him. Anna Carter. He repeated her name internally, not because he needed to remember it, but because he could not let it fade. He stopped near a glass window overlooking the maternity wing, and looked down at the file he had requested from the nurse station without fully thinking through why he was requesting it. Her medical chart was thin, incomplete in ways that immediately caught his attention. No emergency contact listed. Limited insurance coverage. Missed appointments in the past 2 weeks. Ethan exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening slightly, not with anger but with calculation. He had built companies from nothing. He had solved problems that others avoided because they were inconvenient. This was not different in principle, only in form. A nurse approached him cautiously. "Mr. Caldwell, do you need assistance with something?" she asked politely, recognizing him immediately. Ethan did not look up from the file. "I want full coverage on patient Anna Carter," he said evenly. "Starting today. Any outstanding balances? Any upcoming procedures? Everything." The nurse hesitated, clearly surprised. "Sir, I am not sure if you are authorized." "I am," Ethan interrupted calmly, finally looking up. His tone was not raised, but it carried weight. The nurse nodded quickly and stepped back. "Yes, sir. I will make the arrangements immediately." Ethan watched her leave, then closed the file. But instead of feeling satisfied, he felt something more complicated. Anna had said she was used to being alone. That single sentence lingered in his mind like something unresolved. He walked toward the administrative wing of the hospital without fully deciding to do so. Each step felt deliberate even though his thoughts were not. Inside the office of the hospital director, Ethan was greeted with immediate recognition. "Mr. Caldwell, we were not expecting you today," the director said, standing quickly. Ethan remained standing, not taking a seat. "One of your patients is currently under your care without adequate support," he said. "Anna Carter." The director blinked. "Yes, she is scheduled for routine prenatal care, but her coverage is limited. We have been trying to work within her plan. That ends now," Ethan said simply. The room went quiet. "From this moment she is covered fully. No restrictions. No delays. If anything is needed, it is approved." The director nodded slowly, sensing no room for negotiation. "Understood, sir." Ethan turned to leave but paused at the door. "And ensure she is not informed of this through billing or administrative notices," he added. "I want it handled discreetly." "Of course," the director replied immediately. Outside again, Ethan paused in the hallway, the noise of the hospital returning around him. He should have felt like he had taken control of the situation. Instead, he felt like he had only just stepped closer to something he did not fully understand. Meanwhile, on the 3rd floor, Anna sat in a small examination room, her hands folded tightly in her lap as she waited for the doctor to return. Her mind kept replaying the brief interaction in the hallway. The man who had looked at her like she was not invisible. She told herself it meant nothing. People said things. People were polite. That was all. But something about his voice had stayed with her longer than she expected. The door opened and her doctor walked in holding a clipboard. "Anna," he said gently, scanning her chart. "There have been some updates to your coverage." She straightened slightly. "Updates?" "Yes," he replied, glancing down again. "It appears your medical expenses have been fully covered by a third-party sponsor." Anna frowned. "A sponsor? That does not make sense. I do not have anyone like that." The doctor offered a small shrug. "It is all in order on our end. Everything is approved." Anna nodded slowly, confusion settling in her chest. "That is unusual," she said softly. "Yes," the doctor admitted. "But in your case it is a good thing." She tried to accept the explanation, but her thoughts drifted back to the hallway again. To the man who had simply listened when no one else had. Far below, Ethan Caldwell stood at the edge of a large window overlooking the city, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Yet inside something had already shifted. And for the first time in a long time, he was not sure whether he had simply observed someone's pain, or quietly stepped into the middle of it. Anna Carter left the examination room with a stack of printed instructions in her hands, but her mind was not on any of them. The hospital hallway felt the same as before, bright, sterile, and indifferent, yet everything inside her felt slightly displaced, like something had shifted without permission. She kept telling herself it was nothing, just another confusing administrative situation. Hospitals made mistakes. Systems overlapped. Things got covered and uncovered without explanation. That was normal. But normal did not usually leave a knot of uncertainty sitting in your chest. She adjusted the strap of her bag and walked toward the elevator, moving slowly, careful with each step. Her baby was fine. That was what mattered. Everything else could be ignored. At least that was what she tried to believe. Down the corridor, Ethan Caldwell stood near a glass wall again, speaking quietly on his phone. "I want updates on her condition every day," he said, voice steady. "And no, I do not want her to know it is coming from me." A pause. Then he added, "Just make sure she is not alone in this process." He ended the call and looked out at the city for a moment. Manhattan stretched beyond the hospital in layers of steel and movement, but none of it felt relevant right now. A few minutes later, Anna stepped into the elevator. The doors were about to close when a hand stopped them. Ethan stepped in. The space inside became instantly smaller, not physically, but in a way that made Anna instinctively straighten her posture. She looked at him surprised. "You are still here," she said before she could stop herself. "Yes," Ethan replied simply. The doors closed. The elevator began to descend with a soft mechanical hum. Silence filled the space between them. Anna looked at the floor numbers changing above the doors, trying to focus on anything but the awareness of him standing only a few feet away. "I thought you would have left by now," she said. Ethan kept his gaze forward. "I had some things to take care of." That was all he offered. Anna nodded slightly, unsure why she felt more nervous than she should. "Thank you earlier," she said after a moment, "for whatever you told them. I do not know what happened with my coverage, but they said it was handled." Ethan turned his head just slightly. "Is it a problem?" Anna hesitated. "No. It is just unexpected. I am not used to things being handled for me." "Maybe that should change," he said quietly. The elevator slowed as it reached the ground floor. Anna looked at him now more directly. "I do not understand why you are involved at all," she admitted. "We barely know each other." Ethan did not answer immediately. The doors opened and people began to move in and out around them, but neither stepped out yet. "I heard you," he said finally. His voice was calm, but there was something firm underneath it. "In the restroom earlier. And I have not been able to ignore it." Anna's expression tightened slightly. She felt a flicker of embarrassment, quickly followed by confusion. "That was not meant for anyone else to hear," she said softly. "I was not trying to be heard." "I know," Ethan replied. "That is why it mattered." She looked away, uncomfortable now. "It was just a moment," she said again, as if repeating it could make it less significant. Ethan studied her quietly. "Moments like that are never just moments," he said. Anna exhaled slowly, shifting her weight. "People go through things," she replied. "They say things they do not mean the way they sound." "Did you mean it?" he asked. The question landed heavier than she expected. She hesitated. Her hand instinctively moved toward her stomach again. "I meant that I am tired," she said honestly. "That I am doing this alone." The elevator doors remained open, waiting. People passed them, but neither moved. Ethan's expression softened slightly, not dramatically, but enough to notice. "You should not be," he said. Anna let out a small, uncertain laugh. "That is not really how life works." "It should not be how yours works," he replied. That sentence stayed between them longer than anything else had. Anna finally stepped out of the elevator, needing air, needing distance. Ethan followed after a brief pause. They walked out into the hospital lobby together, the noise of the city pressing in through the glass doors. Anna stopped near the exit. I need to go home, she said. My appointment is done. Ethan nodded once. I will have a car brought around. She turned quickly. No. I can take the bus. You should not be standing on a bus for over an hour in your condition, he said calmly. Anna frowned slightly. You do not get to decide that for me. There was a brief silence. Ethan looked at her, not offended, not defensive. Just steady. You are right, he said. Then he added, but I can still make sure you are not alone doing it. Anna did not respond immediately. She did not know how. A moment later, a black car pulled up outside the hospital entrance. Ethan gestured lightly toward it. At least let me take you home once, he said. Anna looked at the car, then back at him. Something about the situation felt unreal, but exhaustion made decisions harder. Slowly she stepped forward. And as she did, Ethan Caldwell followed, not as someone intruding, but as someone who had already decided not to walk away. Anna Carter sat quietly in the back seat of the black car, her hands resting over her stomach in a protective gesture she had developed without thinking. The leather seats were soft, almost unreal compared to the worn furniture she was used to at home. Everything about the car felt like another world, too clean, too quiet, too controlled. Outside the window, Manhattan moved in sharp lines and fast motion. Taxis weaving through traffic, pedestrians rushing under gray afternoon light. She kept telling herself this was temporary. Just a ride home. Nothing more. Ethan Caldwell sat beside her, not looking at her directly, but she could feel his presence like a steady weight in the space between them. He had not spoken much since they left the hospital. That silence should have made her more comfortable, but instead it made her more aware of him. You do not have to do this, you know, she finally said, breaking the quiet. Ethan turned his head slightly. Do what? All of this, Anna replied. The ride. The coverage. The help. I did not ask for any of it. He paused for a moment, then said calmly, I know you did not ask. Anna exhaled slowly, looking out the window again. Then why are you doing it? Ethan did not answer immediately. The question seemed to sit between them longer than expected. Finally he said, because you should not be carrying everything alone. Anna let out a small, tired laugh. You do not even know me. I know enough, he replied. That answer should have frustrated her, but instead it made her quiet. The car turned onto a narrower street, moving away from the polished buildings of downtown and into older residential blocks. Anna shifted slightly in her seat. My apartment is not exactly what you are used to, she said, a hint of warning in her voice. That is fine, Ethan replied without hesitation. I am not here for comparison. She glanced at him briefly. People usually are. Ethan looked forward again. Then they are usually looking at the wrong things. The car slowed as they entered her neighborhood. The buildings here were older, some with faded paint and narrow stairwells that led to small apartments stacked tightly above each other. Anna felt a familiar tightening in her chest as they arrived. This was her reality. Not the hospital. Not the car. This is it, she said quietly as the driver pulled to a stop. Ethan looked out the window, taking in the building without judgment. Do you feel safe here? He asked. The question caught her off guard. Anna hesitated. It is home, she said carefully. That is not what I asked, he replied. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she unbuckled her seatbelt. Thank you for the ride, she said, trying to keep her tone neutral. I appreciate it. Ethan nodded once. I will walk you to the door. Anna shook her head slightly. You do not need to do that. I am aware, he said. But I am still going to. She hesitated, then finally stepped out of the car. The air outside was cooler, sharper. Ethan followed. They walked together toward the entrance of the building. The sidewalk was uneven in places, and Anna instinctively adjusted her pace. She was aware of how out of place he looked here. The suit, the posture, the quiet confidence that did not belong to this street. At the door Anna stopped. This is me, she said. Ethan looked at the building, then back at her. Do you have someone checking on you regularly? He asked. I do not need someone checking on me, Anna replied quickly. Ethan studied her for a moment. That is not the same as not needing support. Anna sighed softly. You really do not understand how people like me live. Then explain it, he said. The simplicity of the request made her pause. She looked at him, unsure whether he was serious or just polite. Finally, she said, "People like me learn not to expect help, because it usually comes with something later." Ethan's expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted slightly. "Not from me," he said. Anna looked down briefly, then back up. "That is what everyone says at first." There was a moment of silence. Not uncomfortable, but heavy. Ethan stepped slightly closer, just enough that his voice did not have to carry. "Anna," he said calmly, "I am not everyone." She did not respond. Not because she disagreed, but because she did not know what to believe yet. A faint sound of footsteps echoed from inside the building as someone opened a door further down the hall. Anna instinctively took a step back. "I should go inside," she said. Ethan nodded. "I will be in the area tomorrow." Anna frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because you have an appointment in the afternoon," he replied. She blinked in surprise. "How do you know that?" Ethan did not elaborate. "Make sure you attend it," he said instead. Anna hesitated, then finally nodded once. "I will." She turned toward the entrance, then paused. "Ethan," she said quietly, surprising herself by using his name. He looked at her. "Thank you," she said again, softer this time. He gave a small nod. "Go inside." Anna turned and walked into the building. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Ethan remained outside for a moment longer, looking up at the windows above as if trying to locate something unseen. Then he finally turned and walked back toward the car, already thinking about tomorrow before today had even finished. The morning came too quickly for Anna Carter, as mornings always did when sleep was light and interrupted by thoughts that refused to settle. She stood in her small kitchen holding a cup of lukewarm tea, staring at the faint condensation on the window. The city outside was already moving, buses passing, people walking with coffee in hand, life continuing in a rhythm she often felt slightly outside of. She placed one hand gently over her stomach. The baby moved faintly in response, a small reminder that no matter how uncertain everything felt, something inside her was still growing with purpose. "Just another appointment," she whispered to herself. "That is all today is." But even as she said it, her thoughts drifted back to Ethan Caldwell. His voice, his presence, the way he had looked at her like she was not invisible. She shook the thought away. People like him did not stay in people like her world. They passed through it. That was all. Later that afternoon, Anna arrived at St. Mary's Memorial Hospital again, her appointment card folded neatly in her hand. The lobby felt familiar now, but no less overwhelming. She sat in the waiting area, watching nurses move between patients, hearing fragments of conversations that did not belong to her life. A television mounted in the corner played muted news, but she did not pay attention to it. Instead, she focused on her breathing. In and out. Steady. Controlled. A nurse called her name. Anna Carter. She stood and followed her down the hallway. The examination room was colder than she remembered. Paper crinkled softly beneath her as she sat on the table, adjusting her jacket around her shoulders. "Everything has been stable so far," the nurse said while checking her file. "We will do a quick scan today." Anna nodded. "That sounds good." The machine hummed softly when it started. The room darkened slightly as the screen lit up. Anna watched the familiar shapes appear, blurred but growing clearer. She had done this before, but each time it still felt new. Still fragile. The nurse smiled faintly. "Baby is growing well," she said. "Strong heartbeat." Anna let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. "That is good," she said quietly. "Really good." But even in that moment of relief, her thoughts drifted again. Not to fear. Not to pain. But to the strange certainty that someone somewhere had been watching over her in ways she did not understand. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan Caldwell stood in a glass conference room overlooking the city, but his attention was not on the financial reports being presented. It had not been for several minutes. "We are projecting a 15% increase in Q4 revenue," one executive said. Ethan nodded slightly, but his mind was elsewhere. "Approved," he said automatically. The room continued, but his phone remained untouched on the table, vibrating once before going silent again. When the meeting finally ended, Ethan dismissed everyone with a simple gesture. The room emptied quickly, leaving him alone with the skyline. He finally picked up his phone and made a call. "What do we have on Anna Carter's appointment today?" he asked. A pause. Then a response. "She is currently in ultrasound, sir. Everything appears normal." Ethan nodded slightly. "Good. Keep it that way." He ended the call and remained still for a moment, watching the movement of the city below. He had handled billion-dollar decisions without hesitation. Yet here, a single name in a hospital file had become something he could not ignore. Later that evening, Anna left the hospital with a printed image folded carefully in her bag. The baby. Small. Real. She stood outside for a moment before heading toward the bus stop. The air was cooler now, the sky dimming into early evening gray. She adjusted her coat and began walking. A black car pulled up slowly beside the curb. She did not need to look twice to recognize it. The window rolled down. Ethan Caldwell sat inside. "Get in," he said simply. Anna stopped walking. "You said you would be in the area," she replied. "I did not think you meant waiting outside the hospital." "I was not waiting outside the hospital," he said. A pause. "I was in the area." She narrowed her eyes slightly, unconvinced. "That is a very specific area." Ethan did not respond to that. Instead, he opened the door from inside. "It is getting late. You should not be taking the bus at this hour." Anna looked at the car, then at him. "You are doing this again." "Yes," he replied calmly. That honesty disarmed her more than any explanation could have. After a moment, she sighed softly and stepped into the car. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. The silence between them returned, but it was different now. Less unfamiliar. More expected. As the car began to move, Ethan glanced at her briefly. "How was the appointment?" he asked. Anna hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out the ultrasound image. She handed it to him without thinking too much about why. Ethan took it carefully. He looked at it for a long moment without speaking. "Everything is fine," she said softly. "That is what they said." Ethan nodded once, still looking at the image. "Good," he said quietly. And for the first time since she had met him, Anna noticed something subtle in his expression. Not calculation. Not control. Something closer to relief. The city looked sharper at night, like every edge had been polished under artificial light, and Anna Carter always felt slightly smaller beneath it. She sat in the passenger seat of Ethan Caldwell's car, her hands resting lightly over the ultrasound image she had not yet returned to her bag. The paper felt fragile, like something that could disappear if held too tightly. Outside the window, traffic moved in steady streams, headlights stretching across wet pavement from an earlier light rain. Anna stared at it without really seeing it. Her thoughts were still inside the hospital room, replaying the faint sound of the baby's heartbeat she had just heard a few hours earlier. Ethan drove in silence for a few miles before speaking. "You were quiet after the appointment," he said. Anna shifted slightly. "I was just thinking." "About?" he asked. She hesitated, then looked down at the ultrasound image. "About how real it suddenly feels," she admitted. "It is different when you see it like this." Ethan glanced at her briefly, then back at the road. "Different how?" Anna let out a soft breath. "Before it was just something I knew. Now it is something I can actually see." The car slowed at a red light. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan said quietly, "Does that make it harder or easier?" Anna considered the question. "Both," she said honestly. "Harder because it feels real. Easier because I am not imagining it anymore." The light turned green. The car moved forward again. Anna leaned her head back against the seat, exhaustion settling into her body. "I used to think I would be doing this with someone," she said after a moment, almost to herself. "Not like this." Ethan did not respond immediately. His hands remained steady on the wheel, but his attention seemed slightly divided. "What changed?" he asked finally. Anna gave a small, tired smile. "Life," she said simply. "It has a way of changing things without asking." The answer seemed to satisfy neither of them, but no further explanation followed. A few minutes later, the car pulled up near her apartment building. The familiar streetlights cast soft yellow pools along the sidewalk. Anna reached for the door handle then paused. "Thank you again," she said. "For the ride." Ethan nodded once. "I will be in touch tomorrow." She frowned slightly. "Why?" "Your next appointment," he replied. Anna sighed softly. "You really do not have to keep doing that." "I know," he said. That was all. She stepped out of the car and closed the door behind her. The engine remained running for a moment as she walked toward the entrance. Only when she reached the door did she look back. The car was still there. Ethan was watching her. She gave a small, uncertain nod, then went inside. Upstairs, her apartment was quiet in the way only empty spaces can be quiet. She set her bag down carefully and placed the ultrasound image on the small kitchen table. She stood there for a long moment just looking at it. A faint vibration broke the silence. Her phone. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." There was a pause on the other end. Then a calm voice. "Anna Carter?" She frowned. "Yes. This is St. Mary's billing department," the voice continued. "We are calling to confirm that your medical expenses have been fully covered." Anna froze slightly. "Covered?" she repeated. "Yes," the voice said. "You will not be receiving any invoices moving forward. Everything has been settled." Anna looked at the ultrasound image on her table again. "That does not make sense," she said slowly. "I do not have coverage like that." "It is already processed," the voice replied. "There is nothing further required from you." The line went silent a moment later. Anna lowered the phone slowly. Her apartment suddenly felt quieter than before. Something about the explanation did not sit right with her. Not because it was good news, but because it felt too clean. Too complete. Like someone had stepped in and erased a problem without leaving a trace. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan Caldwell stood alone in his office, the lights dim except for the city skyline beyond the glass. A document lay open on his desk, but he was not reading it. His phone rested beside it, screen dark. He finally picked it up and made a call. "Did she receive the confirmation?" he asked. "Yes, sir," came the response. She seemed confused. Ethan nodded slightly, though no one could see it. "That is fine," he said. "Keep it that way." He ended the call and leaned back slightly in his chair. Outside the glass, Manhattan continued moving without pause, but Ethan's attention was no longer on the city. It was on a woman in a small apartment across town, holding a piece of paper that should not have changed anything, yet somehow already had. The night after the hospital visit did not feel like rest for Anna Carter. Felt like waiting. Waiting for a sound, a message, something she could not define but could not ignore either. She sat on the edge of her bed with a thin blanket wrapped loosely around her shoulders, staring at the faint glow of her phone on the small nightstand. The ultrasound image was still on the kitchen table downstairs, untouched since she placed it there. She told herself she should sleep. Tomorrow would come whether she was ready or not. But sleep did not come easily anymore. Every quiet moment felt heavier now, like the world was holding its breath with her. Somewhere across the city, Ethan Caldwell stood in his office long after his staff had left. The lights outside the glass tower flickered with movement, but inside, everything was still. He was looking at a file again, though not because he needed to. Anna Carter's name appeared more often now in his thoughts than it had any logical reason to. He leaned back slightly, fingers resting against the edge of his desk. "She should not be dealing with this alone," he said quietly to no one in particular. The words were not a decision yet, more like a thought that had already crossed the line into action without permission. The following morning arrived with a sharp knock on Anna's apartment door. She frowned slightly, glancing at the clock. It was just past 8 a.m. She carefully stood, adjusting her sweater before walking toward the door. When she opened it, she found a woman standing outside holding a small folder and wearing a polite, professional expression. "Miss Carter?" the woman asked. Anna nodded slowly. "Yes." "Good morning," the woman said. "I am from St. Mary's administration. I was asked to confirm your upcoming care schedule and ensure all arrangements are in place." Anna blinked. "I already confirmed everything yesterday." The woman smiled politely. "Yes, but there have been additional updates. Your prenatal care has been fully coordinated for the remainder of your term." Anna frowned slightly. Coordinated by who? The woman hesitated just briefly. A private sponsor. Anna felt her chest tighten. That is not normal, she said carefully. I did not request a sponsor. We understand, the woman replied calmly. However, everything is already active in your file. There is nothing for you to manage or approve. Anna stepped back slightly, unsure how to respond. This feels like something I should have been told about. The woman nodded once. All we can confirm is that your care will continue without interruption. Then she handed Anna the folder and left without further explanation. Anna closed the door slowly. The apartment suddenly felt smaller than it had the night before. She placed the folder on the table, staring at it without opening it. A part of her wanted to call the hospital immediately. Another part of her already knew she would not get a real answer. Meanwhile, Ethan received a short message on his phone. Confirmation delivered. He read it once, then set the phone down without reply. But instead of returning to his work, he stood by the window for a long time, watching the city move below. He had dealt with acquisitions worth hundreds of millions of dollars without hesitation. Yet this, something as simple as covering medical care, felt different. Not because it was complicated, because it was personal. That evening, Anna left her apartment earlier than usual. She needed air. She needed distance from her thoughts. The city was cooler now, the sidewalks busy with people heading home, streetlights beginning to glow faintly as the sun dipped lower. She walked without direction for a while until she found herself near the hospital again. Mary stood the same as always. Clean, bright, unchanged. But she felt different standing in front of it now, as if it was connected to something she could not see yet. She considered turning away. Then she stopped. Inside the hospital lobby, Ethan arrived at nearly the same moment from a different entrance. He was not supposed to be there. There was no meeting, no scheduled reason. He had simply come. When he saw her standing near the entrance, he paused. Anna noticed him almost immediately. "You are here again," she said. Ethan stepped closer, calm as always. "I could say the same." She gave a small, uncertain smile. "Do you just appear wherever I go now?" "Not intentionally," he replied. That made her exhale softly, almost despite herself. "I got another message today," she said after a moment. Ethan's expression changed slightly. "About your care?" "Yes," Anna said. "They called it a sponsor." Again. She looked at him carefully now. "Do you know anything about that?" There was a brief silence. Ethan held her gaze, steady and unreadable. "It is handled," he said simply. Anna shook her head slightly. "That is not an answer." "It is the only one I can give you right now," he replied. The air between them felt different now, heavier. Not uncomfortable. Just real in a way neither of them had fully prepared for. Anna studied him for a moment longer. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Ethan did not answer immediately. When he finally did, his voice was lower than before. "Because I heard you when no one else did." Anna looked away, unsure what to do with that answer. Outside, the city continued its endless movement, unaware that inside one quiet entrance of a hospital, something had already begun to shift beyond either of their control. The message came just after midnight. Anna Carter had been lying awake, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, listening to the distant hum of traffic that never fully stopped in Manhattan. Her phone lit up softly on the nightstand. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello." Pause on the other end. Then a calm, controlled voice. "Miss Carter, this is St. Mary's scheduling office. There has been an update regarding your care plan." Anna sat up slightly, pulling the blanket closer. "Another update?" she asked, already feeling the familiar tension return to her chest. "Yes," the voice continued. "Your upcoming appointments have been adjusted to accommodate priority scheduling. All costs will continue to be fully covered." Anna frowned. "I was told that already. But no one can explain who is covering it." A brief silence followed. "We are not authorized to disclose that information," the voice replied. "However, everything is confirmed and active." The call ended before she could ask anything else. Anna lowered the phone slowly, frustration mixing with confusion. This was no longer a coincidence. It was a pattern. And patterns meant intention. Across the city, Ethan Caldwell stood in his office with his jacket still on, though he had not moved for several minutes. His assistant had already left, and the floor outside his glass doors was empty. He had just finished a call with the hospital administrator, confirming that everything remained discreet. Still, he did not feel satisfied. He felt something closer to urgency, not for business, for something he could not yet define. He finally picked up his phone again and sent a single message. Move her next appointment to private care wing. No signature. No explanation. Just action. The next morning, Anna arrived at St. Mary's earlier than usual. She had barely slept, her mind circling the same unanswered question over and over. Who was doing this? And why her? She walked into the hospital lobby, expecting the usual waiting room routine, but a nurse approached her immediately. Miss Carter. Anna nodded. Yes. Please follow me. Your appointment has been moved. Anna frowned slightly. Moved where? Private care wing, the nurse said gently. Anna stopped walking. That is not where I am scheduled. It has been updated, the nurse replied. Everything is already prepared for you. Anna hesitated. I did not request that. The nurse offered a polite but uncertain smile. I understand, but we were instructed to proceed. Anna exhaled slowly, then followed anyway. The hallways became quieter as they moved deeper into the hospital. Less noise. Fewer people. More space. Felt different immediately. Controlled. Almost too controlled. When she entered the room, everything looked new. Softer lighting. Private monitoring equipment. A single chair placed near the examination bed instead of a crowded waiting area. She stood there for a moment, uncomfortable. This was not her world. A few minutes later, Ethan Caldwell entered through a separate door. Anna turned instantly when she saw him. Of course, she said, folding her arms slightly. You are here. Ethan closed the door behind him calmly. I did not expect you to be surprised anymore. I am not surprised, Anna replied. I am confused. He stepped further into the room but kept a respectful distance. You should not be exposed to unnecessary stress during pregnancy, he said simply. Anna let out a short breath. That is not your decision to make. Ethan nodded once. I understand. She studied him carefully now. Do you? She asked. Because it feels like you are making a lot of decisions without telling me. Ethan did not respond immediately. He looked at the monitoring equipment, then back at her. I am making sure nothing is left to chance. Anna shook her head slightly. Why? The question was sharper this time. Ethan's expression remained steady, but something in his eyes shifted. Because I have seen what happens when people are left alone in situations like this, he said quietly. Anna held his gaze. This is not your responsibility. It is now, he replied. The certainty in his voice made the room feel smaller. Anna looked away for a moment, overwhelmed by the lack of control she was beginning to feel. I did not ask for any of this, she said softly. Ethan stepped slightly closer, but still not within intrusion distance. I know. There was a pause. A long one. Then Anna spoke again, quieter. Then stopped doing it without asking. Ethan considered her words. For the first time, he did not answer immediately. Instead, he said something different. If I ask, you will refuse. Anna blinked slightly. That is not the point. It might be, he replied. Silence filled the room again. Anna slowly sat down on the edge of the examination bed, suddenly tired in a deeper way than before. I just want things to be normal, she said. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. What is normal for you is not safe, he said calmly. Anna gave a faint, almost sad smile. And what is safe for me is decided by you. Ethan did not answer that directly. Instead, he said, it is decided by what I can see. That sentence stayed between them. Heavy. Unfinished. Outside the room, the hospital continued its usual rhythm. But inside, something had already shifted beyond explanation. And neither of them had fully stepped back from it. The silence in the private care room felt heavier than usual that morning. Anna Carter sat on the edge of the examination bed with her hands loosely folded over her stomach, staring at the soft white sheets as if they could give her answers she had not been able to find anywhere else. The hospital lights were gentle here. Almost too gentle. like everything had been designed to remove discomfort from a place that naturally carried it. But Anna still felt it. Not physically. Emotionally. Ethan Caldwell stood near the window, looking out at the city below, though his attention was not on the view. It rarely was when he was in the same room as her. "You did not sleep," he said quietly. Anna let out a small breath. "It is not easy lately." Ethan turned slightly. "Because of the pregnancy?" Anna shook her head. "Because of everything around it." That answer lingered between them longer than expected. The monitor beside her gave a soft rhythmic sound, steady and constant, almost grounding. Ethan stepped closer, not invading her space, just reducing distance enough to speak without tension. "You are overthinking things you cannot control," he said calmly. Anna looked up at him. "That is easy for you to say." "No," he replied. "It is necessary for both of us." A faint tension crossed her expression. "You keep saying things like that," she said. "Both of us. Like this is shared." Ethan did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her more directly now. "Is it not?" Anna paused. The question was simple, but it did not feel simple. She lowered her gaze again. "I did not choose any of this," she said softly. "You stepped into it anyway." Ethan nodded once. "I know." The room went quiet again, filled only by the soft rhythm of the monitor. Then Anna spoke again, quieter this time. "Why me?" Ethan did not respond immediately. He seemed to consider the question in a way that felt different from before. Not analytical. Not strategic. More human. "Because you were honest," he said finally. Anna frowned slightly. "That is not an answer." "It is the only one I have right now," he replied. A nurse knocked softly before entering, checking the equipment and updating notes on the chart. Anna watched her carefully, still unsettled by how controlled everything had become around her care. When the nurse left, Anna turned back to Ethan. "This level of attention is not normal," she said. "People like me do not get private rooms and constant monitoring." Ethan looked at her steadily. "People like you should not be treated as exceptions when it comes to safety." Anna let out a short, tired laugh. "You keep saying safety," she said, "but it feels like control." That sentence changed something in the air. Ethan did not react immediately. When he finally spoke, his tone was lower. "Control would mean I expect something in return," he said. "I do not." Anna studied him for a moment. "Then what do you expect?" she asked. Ethan hesitated slightly. "That you are not left alone in a situation that already carries enough risk." Anna looked down again, her hands tightening slightly. "I have been alone in worse situations," she said quietly. Ethan stepped closer, just enough for his voice to lower without pressure. "That does not make it acceptable." She did not respond immediately. The honesty in his tone made it harder to dismiss than she expected. A moment later, the doctor entered with a file. "Everything looks stable," he said, glancing between them. "But I recommend reduced stress and continued monitoring in this setting." Anna nodded slowly. "How long will I be in a room like this?" she asked. The doctor hesitated. "As long as your sponsor maintains coverage." Anna turned slightly toward Ethan. "Sponsor," she repeated softly. Ethan met her gaze but did not correct it. "Not yet." After the doctor left, Anna finally spoke again. "I do not like feeling like I owe something I did not ask for." Ethan responded immediately. "You do not owe me anything." Anna shook her head slightly. "That is not how it feels." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Then let us make something clear." Anna waited. "Nothing I do is conditional," he said. "Not your care. Not your safety. Not your access to what you need." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Anna exhaled slowly. "People do not usually do things like that," she said. Ethan's expression remained steady. "Then you have not met the right people," he replied. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The monitor continued its steady rhythm, marking time in a way neither of them could control. Anna finally leaned back slightly, her exhaustion catching up with her again. "I just want my child to be okay," she said softly. Ethan nodded once. "That is already the priority," he said. Anna looked at him again, searching for something she could name. But what she found instead was something she did not fully understand yet. And that unsettled her more than anything else. The message came just before sunrise, when the city outside St. Mary's Memorial Hospital was still half asleep. Anna Carter was already awake, sitting in the private care room with a thin hospital blanket wrapped loosely around her shoulders. She had not slept properly again. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind returned to the same place. Ethan Caldwell's voice. The way he spoke like certainty itself was something he could assign to reality. The door opened without warning. A nurse stepped in first, followed by a hospital administrator holding a tablet. "Miss Carter," the administrator said politely, "we need to inform you of a change regarding your billing records." Anna frowned immediately. "Another change?" she asked. "Yes," the administrator replied. "There appears to have been an adjustment made to your file. A formal audit flagged your account as fully resolved. No outstanding balances. No pending charges." Anna sat up straighter. "That does not make sense," she said carefully. "I was told that already, but now you are saying it is finalized?" The administrator nodded. "It is not just pending coverage anymore. It is fully cleared." Anna felt a tightening in her chest. "Cleared by who?" she asked. The administrator hesitated just slightly. "That information is not included in the system notes." Anna stared at him. "So no one can tell me who is paying for my care?" "That is correct," he said. "We are only authorized to confirm that everything has been handled." The nurse avoided eye contact as she checked the monitors. Anna looked down at her hands. "This is not normal," she said softly. "People do not just erase medical costs for someone they do not know." The administrator offered a neutral expression. "Sometimes they do," he replied. "In this case they have." And with that they left the room. The door closed quietly behind them. Anna exhaled slowly, leaning back against the bed. Her thoughts immediately went to one person: Ethan Caldwell. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan stood in a glass conference room overlooking Manhattan. The meeting around him had been going on for 20 minutes, but he had only been half listening. His attention kept drifting. Finally, his phone buzzed. A short message. "Billing audit complete. Patient account fully resolved." Ethan read it once, then set the phone down without expression. "Continue," he said to the room. But his mind was already elsewhere. Later that afternoon, Anna was scheduled for a routine checkup. Ethan arrived before she did. He stood near the window in the private care wing, hands in his pockets, watching the slow movement of staff outside. He did not move when she entered. Anna stopped when she saw him. "You are here early," she said. Ethan turned slightly. "I was already here." "That is not an answer," Anna replied. Ethan gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod. "I wanted to confirm your appointment would proceed without interruption." Anna walked further into the room, placing her bag on the chair. "Why does it feel like everything about my life is being managed by someone else?" she asked. Ethan looked at her directly. "Because someone is making sure it is stable." Anna frowned. "Stable does not mean controlled." Ethan stepped a little closer, but still kept distance. "I am not controlling you," he said. "I am removing unnecessary risk." Anna let out a small breath. "You keep saying risk like I am some kind of project." Ethan did not respond immediately. That comparison clearly did not sit well with him. "You are not a project," he said finally. Anna studied him carefully. "Then what am I?" The question lingered in the air longer than expected. Ethan looked at her for a moment before answering. "Someone who should not be left unprotected." Anna shook her head slightly. "I do not need protection from life," she said. "I have been handling it for years." Ethan's voice remained calm. "That does not mean you should have to keep doing it alone." Before Anna could respond, the doctor entered with her chart. The examination was quick and routine, but Anna noticed something different in the way the staff behaved. There was hesitation in their movements, careful politeness that felt unusual. After the doctor left, Anna turned back to Ethan. "Something is happening behind the scenes," she said quietly. Ethan did not deny it. "Yes." That single word made her pause. "So it is you," she said. Not a question. Ethan met her gaze. "Yes." The confirmation settled between them heavily. Anna took a step back. Why? She asked again, sharper this time. Ethan did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than before. Because I heard you say something in that hospital hallway that I cannot ignore. Anna frowned slightly. That was not meant for you. I know, Ethan said. But I heard it anyway. Anna looked down, overwhelmed by the reality of it. So now what? She asked softly. Ethan paused. Now I make sure you are not alone in this. Anna looked at him, frustration and confusion mixing in her expression. I do not even know what this is anymore, she said. Ethan's expression softened slightly, but only for a moment. Then let it become something safe first, he replied. The room fell quiet again. This time, neither of them rushed to fill it. And for the first time since they met, Anna realized the situation was no longer something happening around her. It was something she was already inside. The morning of Anna Carter's next appointment felt different in a way she could not fully explain. Not quieter, not calmer, just heavier, as if something unseen had already started moving around her life without asking permission. She stood in front of her mirror at home, brushing her hair slowly, her reflection looking more tired than she remembered. Her hand instinctively rested over her stomach for a brief moment. The baby moved gently, a small reminder that life was still continuing no matter how uncertain everything around her felt. She exhaled slowly. Just another appointment, she whispered. That is all it is. But she did not believe it anymore. When she arrived at St. Mary's Memorial Hospital, the atmosphere felt different immediately. The waiting area was quieter than usual, almost intentionally so. A nurse approached her right away. Miss Carter, she said politely, your appointment has been upgraded to a private consultation schedule. Anna frowned slightly. Upgraded again? She asked. Yes, the nurse replied. Everything is prepared for you. Anna tightened her grip on her bag. I did not request any upgrade. The nurse gave a small, careful smile. We understand. But it has already been arranged. That word again. Arranged. Anna followed her down the corridor, her thoughts growing heavier with every step. When she entered the private consultation room, Ethan Caldwell was already there. He stood near the window, hands in his pockets, calm as always. Anna stopped immediately. Of course you are here, she said quietly. Ethan turned toward her. You were expected. By who? Anna asked, placing her bag down on the chair. Ethan did not answer immediately. Instead, he watched her carefully. Sit, he said gently. Anna hesitated, then sat on the edge of the examination bed. I am starting to notice a pattern, she said. Every time something changes in my care, you are involved. Ethan met her gaze directly. Because I am making sure it is handled properly. Anna shook her head slightly. That is not an explanation. Ethan stepped closer, but still maintained distance. It is the only thing that matters right now. Anna let out a small breath. You are making decisions about my life without asking me. I am making decisions to protect your condition, Ethan replied calmly. Anna frowned. My condition? Ethan paused briefly. Your pregnancy requires stability, he said. Unnecessary stress increases risk. Anna looked at him carefully. So I am just a risk factor now? Ethan's expression tightened slightly, not in anger but in restraint. That is not what I said. Before Anna could respond, the doctor entered, breaking the tension. The examination was routine, but Anna could feel something unusual in the way everything was being handled. Faster. Smoother. Like there were no delays allowed. After the doctor left, Anna remained seated, staring at the floor. I am going to ask you something, she said quietly. Ethan nodded once. Go ahead. Anna looked up at him. What exactly are you doing? Ethan did not answer immediately. The silence stretched longer than before. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but lower than usual. I am making sure nothing interrupts your care. Anna frowned. That is not what I asked. Ethan stepped slightly closer this time. You are not alone in this anymore, he said. Anna stood up slowly. I did not agree to that. Ethan's expression softened slightly. You did not have to. That answer landed heavily between them. Anna shook her head. You cannot just step into someone's life and start deciding things like this. Ethan did not deny it. Instead, he said quietly, "If I had asked, you would have said no." Anna looked at him sharply. "So you decided for me." "I decided for safety," he corrected. Anna let out a frustrated breath. "This is not normal." Ethan nodded once. "No," he said. "It is not." A pause followed. Not tense. Not calm. Just uncertain. Anna looked at him for a long moment, trying to understand where all of this was heading. "Why do you care so much?" she asked finally. Ethan did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter than before. "Because I heard something in your voice that I recognize." Anna frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" Ethan looked at her directly. "It means I understand what it sounds like when someone has been alone for too long." The room fell silent. Anna slowly sat back down, suddenly unsure of what to say. Outside, the hospital continued its normal rhythm. But inside that room, something had already shifted beyond control. And neither of them was stepping away from it anymore. The morning light over Manhattan felt softer than usual, as if the city itself had paused to watch something unfold quietly beneath it. Anna Carter stood in front of the hospital entrance for a moment before going inside, her hands resting lightly over her stomach. She had not slept well again. Not because of pain, not because of fear, but because her life no longer felt like something she fully understood. Every step she took into St. Mary's Memorial Hospital felt like stepping deeper into a version of reality she had not chosen. Ethan Caldwell was already inside when she arrived. He stood near the private care reception desk, speaking briefly with the hospital administrator. When he saw her, he ended the conversation immediately and walked toward her. "You are early," he said calmly. Anna looked at him. "So are you." Ethan nodded slightly. "I stayed after reviewing your schedule." Anna frowned. "Why do you need to review my schedule?" Ethan's expression remained steady. "Because I am making sure there are no disruptions." Anna exhaled slowly. "That is not something you should be responsible for." "It already is," he replied. The answer made her pause. Not because it was loud, because it was final. A nurse arrived and guided them both toward the private consultation wing again. The hallway felt familiar now, but no less surreal. Everything was controlled, quiet, intentionally separated from the rest of the hospital. When they entered the room, Anna did not sit immediately. She stood near the examination table, watching Ethan carefully. "I need to ask you something," she said. Ethan turned toward her. "Go ahead." Anna hesitated for a moment. "What happens when I say no to all of this?" Ethan did not respond immediately. The question seemed to settle into the space between them. "No to what exactly?" he asked. Anna gestured slightly around the room. "All of it. The private care. The coverage. The constant arrangements I never asked for." Ethan stepped closer, but not too close. "Nothing changes medically," he said. "You would still receive care." Anna narrowed her eyes slightly. "That is not what I meant." Ethan studied her for a moment. "Then what are you asking?" Anna's voice softened slightly. "I am asking if I still have control over my own life." That question hung in the air longer than anything before it. Ethan finally replied, "You always have control." Anna gave a faint, almost disbelieving laugh. "It does not feel like it." Ethan nodded once. "I understand why." Before she could respond, the doctor entered for the scheduled examination. The routine process began, but Anna's attention kept drifting back to Ethan, who remained near the window, silent, observant. After the examination ended, the doctor left them alone again. The room felt heavier without the professional interruption. Anna slowly sat down on the edge of the bed. "This is not sustainable," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "What part?" "All of it," she replied. "You cannot keep stepping into my life like this." Ethan did not deny it. Instead he said, "I am not stepping into it. I am standing where I already am." Anna shook her head slightly. "That does not make it better." Ethan walked a little closer this time. "What would make it better?" Anna looked up at him. "Being asked," she said. "Being included in decisions that affect me." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "If I ask, you will refuse." Anna frowned. You do not know that. I do, he said calmly. Anna looked away frustrated. So you just decide for me instead? Ethan's expression softened slightly. I decide when waiting puts you at risk. Anna stood up again, her voice more firm now. You are not responsible for me. Ethan met her gaze directly. Not officially, he said. But that does not change what I see. Anna paused. And what exactly do you see? Ethan did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. Someone who should not have to keep proving they can survive alone. That sentence made her quiet. Not because it was new, but because it sounded like something she had been thinking for years but never said out loud. A silence followed. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy with everything neither of them had fully named yet. Finally, Anna spoke softly. I do not know what this is becoming. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Neither do I, he admitted. That honesty changed something in the room. Anna slowly sat back down, her energy fading slightly. I just need things to be stable, she said quietly. Ethan nodded. They are becoming that. Anna looked at him. Because of you. Ethan did not deny it. Because I am choosing to make sure they are. Outside the room, the hospital continued its normal rhythm, unaware of how much had shifted inside one quiet space. Anna lowered her gaze, her hands resting gently over her stomach again. I do not want to owe anyone for this, she said. Ethan answered softly. Then do not think of it that way. Anna looked up at him. Then how should I think of it? Ethan paused. His expression was steady, but something behind it was no longer purely controlled. Think of it as something that is already happening, he said. And I am not stepping away from it. For the first time, Anna did not have an immediate response. And in that silence, neither of them tried to fill the space between what was already happening and what neither of them had yet called by name.